an unwinding of carry trades like we're seeing right now. Again, exactly as we saw it back in 1998 and exactly as we saw in 2008, it shows the extent to which dollar yen can move. I mean, actually 5% relative to those moves is actually relatively quite minor. It's just large compared to everything else we've seen.
We also had news out of Japan today. The public pension fund with over $1 trillion in assets is going to raise its exposure to foreign stocks and bonds. That equates to a potential $70 billion of yen sales in the market, yet the market has shrugged its shoulders.
Yeah, I mean, it was actually quite a remarkable number. They're increasing their percentage in Japanese stocks, I think, by 1%, but they're increasing their exposure to overseas assets by 6%. So potentially, there's a huge buying taking place. What the market doesn't know is whether a lot of this has already happened, and clearly they denied that. But nevertheless, the fact that the market is shrugging its shoulders to it shows you the sheer extent of positioning that's already out there that needs to be unwound.
So yen, dollar yen down 5% this week. We're down at a 95 handle right now. How far lower can this go?
Well, I put a target out earlier this week for 3 months for 93. I should have said 3 days. But I mean, I think the important thing is that really with dollar yen, there's always the potential to overshoot here. We've seen this before. What happens on Monday and Tuesday is going to be critical here. If we start to see a further slide, clearly we can overshoot. And again, the 2008 and 1998 give us exactly the example. You can see 10% moves.
It seems bizarre to talk about or even contemplate it, given that dollar yen's at 95, not 75. But might we be looking at, if there is an overshoot, looking at possible intervention?
I personally think there is. I've heard a lot of people say I'm talking complete rubbish about this. But if indirect intervention or the threat of indirect intervention by the pension funds isn't working, something more direct, either in the stock market or in dollar yen, and after all, the weak Nikkei at the moment is a reflection of a strong yen, perhaps that makes sense. I can imagine if other nations want Japan to dampen the damage that's been done in its local stock market for fear of contagion, they may even smile on it. They could certainly argue excess volatility as that 5% number argues.
That's always the fallback, isn't it?
Yeah,
excess
absolutely.
volatility. Well, we can't talk on Payrolls Friday without talking about payrolls themselves. Should investors and traders be getting their tin hats at the ready for Monday morning?
Well, I think that there's very finely balanced markets, to be quite honest, because I can see an argument both ways for it causing problems. Let's say we have a number that's over 200 or 210. That will only add to people's expectations the Fed's going to tighten. That's going to be a problem for stock markets. And a weak number, let's say we're getting into the low 120s, 130s, that's only going to make people think the dollar's going to go lower, which is going to cause a problem for dollar yen. So I think it's going to be very finely balanced.